The machines we are about to show you are the largest land vehicles ever built. Not the tallest, not the fastest, the heaviest. We are talking about giant walking draglines and massive stripping shovels in open-pit coal mines. Machines that weigh more than ocean-going cargo ships and consume enough electricity to power entire towns. These are the 10 biggest draglines and stripping shovels of 2026. And the story of how most of them ended up dead is just as fascinating as the machines themselves. Before we begin, one quick distinction. A dragline swings a massive bucket on heavy steel cables from a long boom, dragging earth toward itself across the coal field below. A stripping shovel digs upward from the pit floor using a rigid dipper arm. Both exist for the same purpose, removing thousands of tons of rock and soil to expose coal seams underneath. Both walk on flat steel shoes across the scarred landscape of surface mining operations. And both belong on this list because they represent the absolute peak of how big humans have ever built land machines. Number 10. Big Brutus. Standing in the flat Kansas prairie near the small town of West Mineral, the Bucyrus-Erie 1850B stripping shovel is the only giant on this list that you can actually visit. At 5,500 tons, with a 150-foot boom and a 90 cubic yard dipper bucket, Big Brutus worked the Pittsburgh and Midway coal fields of southeastern Kansas from 1963 until 1974, when rising energy costs made the massive electric mining shovel uneconomical. What makes Big Brutus unique is that instead of being cut apart for scrap metal like every other giant, the Pittsburgh and Midway Coal Mining Company donated the entire machine to a non-profit. Today, it stands exactly where it last dug, preserved as a museum and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Visitors can climb 11 stories through the steel framework to the operator's cab and look out across the Kansas grasslands from the same seat where miners once worked 12-hour shifts. The site draws tens of thousands of visitors every year. In 2010, a 49-year-old dentist died attempting to base jump from the top of the boom, a grim reminder that even in retirement, these industrial giants demand respect. Number 9. The Mountaineer. Built by the Marion Power Shovel Company in Marion, Ohio, in 1955, the Marion 5760 was the first machine ever classified as a super stripper. At 2,750 tons, with a 65 cubic yard bucket and a 180-foot boom, the Mountaineer worked for Hanna Coal Company in the strip mining country of eastern Ohio and became the prototype for every giant stripping shovel that followed. But the Mountaineer's most famous moment had nothing to do with digging coal. On January 4, 1973, Hanna Coal needed to walk the enormous machine across Interstate 70, the major highway cutting through the Ohio coal belt. Highway construction crews piled 30 feet of crushed stone and compacted dirt over the interstate surface while traffic was diverted around the crossing zone. Engineers embedded pressure sensors beneath the road, and the 5.5 million-pound machine crossed the 6-lane highway in 6.5 hours. NBC Evening News covered the event on national television. The New York Times put it on the front page. That single highway crossing, with a giant shovel lumbering across an American interstate, became a symbol for the entire anti-strip mining movement and helped drive passage of the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act 4 years later. Number 8. The Caterpillar 8750 dragline, the newest machine on our list and the one with the longest reach. The Cat 8750 carries a tubular steel boom stretching 435 feet into the sky above the open pit mine, making it the longest boom ever mounted on any walking dragline in history. Weighing up to 7,300 tons with a 152 cubic yard bucket, the 8750 was the first dragline to use an AC IGBT drive system, replacing older DC motor technology with more efficient power electronics inside the massive electrical control room of the machine house. The prototype was commissioned at TransAlta's Highvale coal mine, west of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, in 2010. Highvale was the largest surface coal mine in Canada, a vast open pit operation stretching across the Alberta prairies. But when TransAlta announced the transition from coal to natural gas power generation in late 2020, hundreds of mining jobs vanished, and the mine closed in December 2021. The current status of the original 8750 unit remains uncertain, a reminder that even the newest giants are not immune to the global shift away from coal. If you are enjoying this countdown of the world's most massive mining machines, hit like and subscribe. We cover heavy equipment history and construction disasters every week. Number 7. The Silver Spade. This Bucyrus-Erie 1950B stripping shovel holds the record for the longest working career of any giant mining machine, an astonishing 41 years, from 1965 to 2006. At roughly 7,000 tons, with a 105 cubic yard bucket and a 200-foot boom, the Silver Spade worked the vast coal fields of eastern Ohio near the communities of Cadiz and New Athens. Named for Hannah Cole's 25th silver anniversary, the enormous electric shovel cost $8 million in 1965, roughly $78 million in today's dollars. Its unveiling at the Ohio Strip Mine drew between 15,000 and 16,000 visitors. The Silver Spade has a twin, the Gem of Egypt, which we will get to next. When the gem was scrapped in 1991, vital mechanical components were harvested from its steel carcass and transplanted into the Silver Spade, which had been sitting idle in the Ohio coal country since 1982. The Gem of Egypt literally donated its organs to keep its twin alive for another 17 years of strip mining. When the Silver Spade finally retired in 2006, it was the last giant stripping shovel to ever operate anywhere in the world. A preservation group fought to save it as a museum, but lost the battle, and the last super stripper was cut apart for scrap. Number 6. The Gem of Egypt. Also a Bucyrus-Erie model 1950B, the Gem was effectively the Silver Spade's twin, but with a bigger dipper bucket of 130 cubic yards and a shorter 170-foot boom. What makes the Gem remarkable is the backroom deal behind its construction. Hannah Cole demanded that the Bucyrus-Erie factory in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, use a patented dipper crowd system invented by their bitter rival, the Marion Power Shovel Company. This forced the only known cooperation between the two fiercest competitors in heavy equipment history. Bucyrus-Erie licensed the knee action crowd from Marion, and in exchange, Marion gained access to Bucyrus-Erie's cable crowd technology. Marion even supplied the boom design. 25,000 people attended the Gem's unveiling at the Ohio Strip Mine in January 1967, and Hannah Cole prepared 2,400 pounds of beef to feed the crowd. By the early 1970s, the Gem was working within sight of Interstate 70, its massive boom visible to passing motorists. The Smithsonian Institution featured the giant machine on the cover of their February 1973 issue. The Gem of Egypt became ground zero for the national fight over strip mining in America. Number 5. Big Hog. The Bucyrus-Erie 3850B stripping shovel operated at Peabody Coal Company's Sinclair Strip Mine near the small town of Drakesboro in the coal country of western Kentucky, starting in 1962. At roughly 9,000 tons, with a 115 cubic yard bucket and a 215-foot boom towering over the flat Kentucky landscape, Big Hog consumed electricity equivalent to a town of 15,000 people, supplied by a dedicated power transformer from the TVA nearby Paradise Steam Plant, one of the largest coal-fired power stations in the United States. Bucyrus-Erie claimed the giant shovel could fill 1,700 railroad cars in a single day. a coal train stretching more than 15 miles long. But Big Hog's real legacy is cultural. In 1971, Kentucky-born singer-songwriter John Prine released Paradise, where the lyric about the world's largest shovel refers directly to this machine, ripping apart the green hills of Muhlenberg County. The song became an anthem for the anti-strip mining movement across Appalachian coal country. And Big Hog's ending is unlike any other machine on this list. When it retired around 1985, Peabody Coal received state permission to bury the entire machine. The boom was laid flat across the scarred earth, hazardous fluids were drained, and a smaller Bucyrus-Erie dragline filled dirt and overburden over the entire shovel until it disappeared beneath the surface of the reclaimed mine land. Big Hog remains entombed under more than 100 feet of Kentucky soil on what is now the Peabody Wildlife Management Area. It is the largest man-made object ever deliberately buried in the ground. Number 4. The ESH 100-100. Built in 1976 by the Uralmash heavy machinery factory in the industrial city of Yekaterinburg in the Ural Mountains of Russia, this was the Soviet Union's answer to Big Muskie. With a 100 cubic meter bucket, roughly 131 cubic yards, a 328-foot boom, and an operating weight of approximately 10,300 tons, the ESH 100-100 was heavier than the Eiffel Tower. The enormous Soviet walking dragline worked the Nazarovsky brown coal deposit in the remote Krasnoyarsk region of central Siberia, surrounded by frozen taiga forest and open steppe. Over its lifetime, it moved 121 million cubic meters of rock and overburden from the Siberian coal fields. But here is the detail that makes this machine's story unforgettable. The Uralmash factory complex in Yekaterinburg that built this giant dragline originally produced T-34 tanks and Su-100 self-propelled guns on its massive assembly lines during World War II, before the Soviet government redirected the factory toward heavy mining equipment production. And when the Soviet economy collapsed in the 1990s, the ESH 100-100 was abandoned in the Siberian wilderness. Locals from the surrounding coal mining towns stripped the machine of every piece of electrical wiring and copper equipment they could carry, selling the metal for scrap at local salvage yards. The pride of Soviet heavy engineering was picked apart piece by scavengers, and eventually what remained of the rusting steel framework was dismantled for metal. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content about the biggest and most extreme mining machines ever built. Number 3. Ursa Major. At roughly 7,380 tons, the Bucyrus-Erie 2570WS walking dragline, named Ursa Major, is the largest operating dragline in North America. Commissioned in 2001 at a cost of $50 million, it works at Arch Resources' Black Thunder surface coal mine in Campbell County, Wyoming, in the heart of the Powder River Basin. Ursa Major runs a 360-foot boom over the vast coal seams. In 2023, it received an upgrade that made headlines across the mining industry. ESCO Corporation delivered a 164 cubic yard pro-fill bucket, claimed as the largest operating dragline bucket on the planet. The massive replacement bucket was fabricated on site near Gillette, Wyoming, by a 6-person welding crew over 10 weeks. Black Thunder operates an entire fleet of named walking draglines alongside Ursa Major, including Thor, Walking Stick, and Raisin Thunder, all working around the clock to strip overburden from the thick Wyoming coal seams below. Number 2. The Captain. The Marion 6360 stripping shovel was the largest machine of its kind ever built. At a base weight of 12,700 tons, increasing to roughly 15,000 tons, with 3.6 million pounds of ballast loaded into its steel base. The captain needed only 4 crew members to operate the enormous mining machine. 1 operator, 1 oiler, 1 welder, and 1 groundman. The entire 15,000-ton shovel was controlled with 2 hand levers and 2 foot pedals inside the operator's cab. Access to the machinery deck high above the coal pit required an 8-story industrial elevator ride through the machine's steel framework. Named for Thomas Mullins, known as Captain, a surface mining pioneer, the Marion 6360 was commissioned on October 15, 1965, at the Captain Mine near the town of Percy in southern Illinois. It was built at a cost of $25 million, the same price as Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, which opened the same year. Here is a connection that almost nobody knows. The Captain's 8-crawler undercarriage, with each track assembly using 42 track shoes, weighing 3.5 tons apiece, was later adapted by the Marion Power Shovel Company to build NASA's 2 crawler transporters at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the enormous tracked vehicles that still carry rockets to the launch pad today. On September 9, 1991, machine operator Gene Miller smelled burning during the afternoon shift inside the massive shovel. He and oiler Fred Kruger climbed down through the machine's steel interior and found hydraulic oil ablaze in the lower works of the shovel after a burst hydraulic line had sprayed hot fluid onto an electrical relay panel. The fire burned for hours inside the machine, weakening the heavy steel structure until a crack ran the entire width of the 5-inch thick steel floor plate. Marion estimated $7 million for repairs, but the mining company declined. Lloyd's of London paid out $35 million in insurance, more than the original construction cost of the machine. The Captain had moved 809 million cubic yards of overburden during its 26 years of strip mining operations in the Illinois coal fields. The giant was scrapped in the last pit it ever dug, and 16,000 acres of mine land became an Illinois state park. And number 1. Big Muskie. The Bucyrus-Erie 4250W walking dragline is the largest dragline ever built, and nothing before or since has come close to matching it. At 13,500 tons, Big Muskie weighed more than 150 Boeing 727 jetliners. The massive steel bucket, dangling from heavy wire rope cables beneath a 310-foot boom, could scoop 220 cubic yards of earth in a single pass, enough volume to hold 2 Greyhound buses side by side. The bucket alone, when empty, weighed 230 tons. Big Muskie was commissioned in 1969 at the Muskingum Mine near the town of Cumberland in the rolling hills of eastern Ohio for the Central Ohio Coal Company. Assembly of the enormous walking dragline required 340 railcars and 260 trucks delivering steel components to the mine site, followed by 200,000 man-hours of on-site construction by specialized heavy equipment erection crews working over more than 2 years. The total cost was $25 million in 1969, roughly $200 million today. But the truly staggering number was the electricity consumption. Big Muskie drew 13,800 volts through a 5-inch diameter trailing power cable that snaked across the mine floor behind the walking machine, feeding 28 massive electric motors that peaked at over 50,000 horsepower combined. The dragline consumed between 14,000 and 18,000 kilowatts per operating hour, equivalent to powering 27,500 American homes simultaneously. Toward the end of its career, the giant machine was run primarily during the night shift because the per kilowatt-hour electricity rate from the Ohio power grid was cheaper after dark. Special agreements with the regional power company were required just to handle the enormous electrical load. Despite all of that staggering power consumption, the crew per shift was just 7 people. 1 dragline operator in the cab high above the mine, 2 oilers maintaining the machinery, 2 bulldozer operators preparing the ground ahead of the walking machine, a welder for emergency steel repairs, and an electrician monitoring the high-voltage electrical systems. They worked 24 hours a day in rotating shifts, 364 days a year. Christmas Day was the only break. Over 22 years of continuous strip mining, Big Muskie moved 608 million cubic yards of Ohio earth, twice the volume excavated during the entire construction of the Panama Canal. Big Muskie was retired in 1991, killed by cheap coal from the Powder River Basin in Wyoming, rising electricity costs in Ohio, and the environmental regulations of the Clean Air Act. The massive dragline sat idle in the Ohio mine for 8 years, while enforcement of the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act ticked toward millions of dollars in fines for the abandoned mining site. Demolition crews used explosives to drop the 310-foot steel boom. The entire 13,500-ton walking dragline, once the most expensive single piece of mining equipment on Earth, yielded just $700,000 in scrap metal. Only the bucket survived. It now sits at Miners Memorial Park on State Route 78, near McConnellsville, Ohio, where visitors can climb inside the massive steel bucket and stand in the same space that once held 220 cubic yards of earth. Like and subscribe for more stories about the machines that shaped our world. And here is the detail that turns this story from sad to extraordinary. The 10,000 acres of eastern Ohio landscape that Big Muskie stripped bare over 2 decades of coal mining have been reclaimed and transformed into the wilds, one of the largest wildlife conservation centers in North America. Today, African rhinoceros, giraffes, zebras, and camels roam the green hills and grasslands of the same ground where the biggest machine ever built once worked around the clock, its massive bucket biting into the earth 24 hours a day. The era of building machines this large is effectively over. The economics of surface coal mining no longer justify concentrating hundreds of millions of dollars into a single walking giant. But in the Powder River Basin of Wyoming and the Bowen Basin of Queensland, Australia, draglines weighing thousands of tons are still taking 45-second bites out of the earth right now, powered by enough electricity to black out entire regions if they all started at once. If you found this countdown as fascinating as we did making it, check out our video on the 10 biggest bulldozers of 2026. That one is on screen right now. Like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.